is there anything I could take for anxiety?
Well, I think we talked about it earlier that I cannot give medical advice, but in my experience, what I have been given for anxiety, which can also be easily habit forming, is Xanax. And yes, it worked pretty well for me. I was able to control, I wasn't overacting for the prescription. Antidepressants help with anxiety as well. Sedatives like lorazepam help with
I think we do have that one over here, but we don't. Yeah, we don't have Xanax though. I would love to have that one back over here now, but we don't have it.
Hey, Chrissy, did you mean something you could take natural, or
yeah,
you meant prescription?
Yeah, just anything that can kind of make you feel a lot more relaxed and not less fight or flight type of feeling.
I had luck with the natural. It was we have over here, it's called BJ's Health Food Store, and they have a lot of organic things.
Organics, yeah. Okay.
And I want to go grab it. I don't know if I can walk off and grab it. It's right there.
Yeah, go ahead and grab it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because it did help me.
I like your background, Pamela. It's very professional.
Oh, you know, I have no desks, so I had two options. The other for tables. The other option was in front of an aquarium that was very loud. So the light's kind of good in here.
The light's beautiful in there.
So this is over the counter, homeopathic. The brand's called Highlands, and it's called Calms Forte. It's listed as a sleep aid, but relieves stress to help you sleep. So I've never taken it to sleep, but I've taken it for anxiety, and it did help. Another thing that I've taken that has helped is CBD oil without the THC.
That helps me a lot too.
THC affects me very badly. It doesn't work for me. It works for some people, but for whatever reason, small or large amounts still cause the same negative effects on me.
Did you ever try that St. John's? It's another all natural.
St. John's wort?
Yeah, that's it.
I have not. I would like to. I have Pmdd, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It's I don't know if you're familiar, a more severe form of PMS, distinguished from regular PMS, as you're dealing with it for about 2.5 weeks out of the month. So it's very pervasive, and it happens around the time when your ovaries, when you're ovulating, and then it lets up when you start your period. So I've heard of St. John's wort for that, as well as evening primrose oil, B vitamins, especially B6, B12. This one, I don't know if you got that, Chrissy. It's Highlands Calms Forte Sleep Aid. It has 100 tablets. Do they have Highlands over there?
I'm going to go and check now, but I'll put that down. I'll write that one down for me.
It has some names that I probably won't pronounce well.
I'll go and have a look if we got that type of stuff over here.
Well, I think if you have a natural like health food store, Chrissy, you'll probably find it there.
I think we do have one.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
So I think it just, comes with, just checking it out for yourself. But
let me step back. I don't know if you can see me. I just recently saw this online and I tried it out, and it actually has a very calming effect for anxiety. I don't know if you can see my feet. Can you see my feet? I'm wearing sweatpants.
Yeah, I can see you.
So you cross your feet, one over the other, and you have your arms like this. And it works with your rib cage and the breathing and the intercostal muscles, things that get tight when you're having anxiety. You can even rock this shirt, or this jacket doesn't let me do it properly.
It's like a hug. You feel like you're getting a hug.
You'll feel your spine release, everything that's getting tight in your abdomen when you're having anxiety.
But you have to stand up and do it.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably.
You gotta be standing. That's the thing. Crossing your feet and your that actually, I was impressed that it did. I was like, is this placebo? But it actually did help me.
Actually, even like this, I feel comforted, even sitting down.
Pamela, I wanted to ask you a question. I didn't know if you were comfortable talking about it, but you know, for you, you have like some issues because of how tense you used to be growing up. You were telling me before about your abdomen, that it would be so tight that it ended up causing issues. Is that correct? And it was from being so stressed out?
Yes. When I first was diagnosed about 10 years ago with complex PTSD, the psychiatrist said that it sounds like you've had your symptoms since you were a toddler, and you probably had you've been dealing with your switch. Basically, your anxiety has been on this whole time. And at that time, in the years prior, when stress would build, I noticed that my stomach muscles would get extremely tight, and they would get so tight that I couldn't even do smaller things like a sit up. The muscles would tear, and I would end up in the ER with small tears. But the psoas muscle was the culprit, and I haven't studied on the psoas muscle, but a lot of people will say that it can hold stress because your body remembers each time you deal with a trauma or even just generalized stress, it remembers what it does. And then for me, I think I in my traumas, I went into that fetal protective thing, because that's actually what will protect you if you're being hit. Tighten up your stomach, your core. So
Since you're a toddler.
yes, so I was born into chaos. My dad, he had severe PTSD. He had some major traumas, and he handled it with drugs, with speed, amphetamines, and drinking Budweiser, Bud Light, a lot of it. And so we were in a lot of violence, a lot of fearing for our life. When things were calm, we were still hyper vigilant. There was no peace. And then when I was about 4 years old, my uncle was among myself and 6 other of my cousins.
Oh.
He did go to prison. I have to say that sometimes, because when there's a crime committed, they want to know if that person's still alive, and they may have to report it if this is heard anywhere else on the internet. But he did pass. Yeah, he did go to prison, and he did pass away last year of COVID. So just dealing with multiple things. My dad never got help. That's one of the reasons I'm very passionate about helping people, talking with people, because every other year of my childhood, it was either in front of me directly or away from me, and we would find out that day. But until he committed, or he was successful at the age of 47. So I really love to talk with people when they're depressed, and being that I experienced depression myself.
I'm so sorry. You were young when that happened with your dad, huh?
I was like 26, I believe, when he passed. Yeah, about 15 years ago.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. I've done a lot of healing in regards to him. Took a while because of so when he died, my PTSD just kind of kicked in. It was already there, but it went into overdrive. And that's when I first started having panic attacks and not knowing what was happening to me. But did that answer your question? Because I tend to talk too much.
I think you did great.
No, I appreciate that you opened up.
Oh, that was.
I didn't expect that.
Sorry, I tend to, I've always been comfortable. Well, actually not always. I was always told to shut up when I was young, to not share what was going on in our home. So I think it made me overshare as an adult.
Well, like if you're comfortable.
Yeah, I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable with it. Because to me, it's more important to share with someone that may be listening, and they don't know
experiences.
Yeah, you never have to shut up here. Only sunshine. And
I have a question. You were saying when you were over here the other day, you were saying I was mentioning it to Tina, something about, you were saying that sometimes people overshare and there's a reason for it. Do you recall that conversation you and I had?
Yes,
Okay,
it is.
would you mind going off that and explaining that?
Yeah, it is a symptom of PTSD. So they named it by category. I have it right here just for reference. But fawning is one of the categories where when you meet someone, you're so vigilant and you want to show them that you're not a threat, so they're not a threat. And so you overshare in attempt to build, morale with them, build intimacy with them. You can also do the opposite. It just depends on which side you ran to as a coping mechanism for your trauma. But I overshare too much, which is dangerous for people who are predators, manipulators, narcissists. But I sometimes do it anyway, because I just know that sometimes it's hard for people to speak up and process their traumas. And with my dad's passing and my own struggles, I've struggled with suicide ideation for many years. And I know what it's like to feel like the oddball or the weird one. So I like to just bring it out in the open, the topics.
Black sheep in the, yeah, I have that too. Black sheep in my family.
I'm the black sheep.
You're the black sheep, Tina?
No, Chrissy.
Oh, Chrissy. I was looking down.
That's why we found each other's flock, and now we're flocking off all the time.
I'm the weird one of the family, so I guess I am the black sheep.
I'm definitely the black. She's like death.
I'm not. I'm immensely favored in my family. I'm just kidding. I'm not. But I'm really funny, and that's something I got out of all this mental stuff.
It is funny because I think, Sonny, you told me about Robin Williams. Like, people that go through the darkest shit are like, they have the best sense of humor because they always want to make people smile because they don't want them to feel the pain that they felt. And I feel that with you, Pamela, too. Like,
I wish I had the humor part. My sister, that's actually one of her biggest, I won't go into too much about her, but that's how she's coped. That's her thing is humor.
Yeah. So. Sometimes inappropriate. Like.
Yeah, my friend Mariah sent me this thing, and it said, mental health challenge of the day. Talk about a trauma you went through without making a joke. And I thought, there's no way I could ever do that because I always have to bring light to it. And Pamela, you said something I thought was interesting. And if you don't mind, I wanted to just jump back to it real quick. But you said, when speaking about your father and some of the stuff that has happened, or with your uncle, my apologies. When you speak about your uncle and, the things that have happened to you, you always say, well, he's dead. And I find that when I speak about my mother and the things that she did to me, the first thing people always want to know is, where is she? Right. And then I'm like, well, she's gone. And people are like, they feel like a sense of relief, I think, for me. And I was wondering, do you know why people like jump to that? Like, where is that person? Where is the abuser? Do you know why that happens?
I think especially if it's someone that cares about you, they want to protect you. And even if they don't themselves go after the person, or they're like, where is he? Who is, kind of like as a parent, who hit you, But in the psychology field, they have mandatory reporters. So they need to know when you share a crime that was committed. So I was a child when it was committed. When it's a crime against a minor, they need to know, is that person still alive, or where are they? So that's kind of why I share it right off the bat. I let them know that my dad is also passed. I did find the 7 trauma responses that need your attention while you're on a healing journey.
Yeah, please go over that.
Fawning, which is over-explaining. We do this after being chronically invalidated growing up and now as adults because we were punished with the withdrawal of love, attention, and affection and fear. The same today. You begin to over-explain an issue because you're afraid of being given the silent treatment, ghosted, or stonewalled. There's also hyper-compliance under that category, agreeing to keep the peace even if your feelings aren't being heard and your needs aren't being met. There's flight, which is, I don't know if you've heard that term, fight or flight with PTSD.
Yeah. Chrissy just mentioned that earlier. Yeah.
Hyper independence. This is the I don't need anyone attitude. I can do it all myself, which is a response to trauma. Though completely understandable, if you've been forced to do things on your own, you may be creating an emotional wall for the very thing you really want, a safe and secure love. You also might become highly reactive, blowing up, irritable. This happens sometimes when core wounds have been triggered. The freeze, where you shut down because you're feeling unsafe and unsure what to say. I don't think I've done that. I don't think that's something I've done. But hypervigilance, those are basically the 7. This is coming from, I should quote it, called Share the Love. I don't have an author here. I need to get an author. But I definitely, I don't know if any of you guys do those things.
I know that I'm very afraid of being stonewalled, so if someone's so if there's like an issue, like I like to get it handled now, because if I feel like if I don't get it handled right now, it's not going to get handled, and then everything's just done. And because that happened to me a lot, where like the silent treatment, the stuff like that growing up, it's probably like my biggest pet peeve. Like if somebody does that to me, because it's like, I'm more like, let's spill it all out. Like, let's get it all out. Whereas my mom, if you didn't do something the way she wanted it done, when she wanted it done, it meant you didn't love her. It meant that you didn't care. It meant this, and it was like, even as a kid, I'd be like I'm only human. Like, what do you want from me? And there was like all kinds of other issues that were happening with me and Brent, mostly at her hands. And so I think she was expecting a lot out of us, like in ways that, we were children, like we could never give. And so, I know for me, like so I know for me, when I'm done. But like, it takes me a lot to hit that wall and be done. But when I'm done, I'm done. And then I'm just like I will act as if somebody didn't even exist. Like, I won't have pictures in my home. I won't do anything to remember that person. I'll act like they never existed, because that's easiest for me. Right. But I also know that that's like a trauma thing, that this is what I do so that it doesn't hurt. And it's almost like pretending it never happened so that I don't have to feel that cut over and over and over.
I'm the same way. I will ride or die with you. And then when I finally die, I'm dead. I don't come back from it. And I think it throws people off because I've been so sacrificial in relationships for decades even. And then when I finally just shut down and they don't exist anymore, they're just really like, what?
Right.
But I wish I could get to that place sooner where I recognize the flags and stand up for myself and establish my boundaries earlier.
Yeah, it's hard. What about you, Chrissy? You deal with any of those things?
I'm usually a person who obviously doesn't talk much. So I'm constantly thinking, should I say this? Should I? All the pluses and minuses of what I should say or not say. So I basically just shut up and let other people talk. Like, I just close down all the time. So right now my brain's like thinking, should I keep on talking or should I just shut up?
Right.
We love listening.
I know, that's what I'm saying. That they're looking at me thinking, are you going to say anything else? And I'm like, So I have moments when I'm funny, back to being like one of those one joke wonders, and then I'm like back to being not funny at all, back to being quiet and listening into other people's problems.
See, I've known you for 3 years. I've never seen you be funny once.
Other than that Wolf Creek movie.
So it's going to happen soon then. Okay.
I think you're funny, Chrissy. You've
No,
made
you're
it
not.
laugh several times.
Chrissy's funniest when she doesn't realize she's being funny. Shut the
Well,
fuck
that's
up,
what I'm saying. That's the it's just the quick wit ones that come out from nowhere, and then I'm like, yeah,
Or
that's,
like-
that's
Why don't you mute yourself? One of my favorite memories with Chrissy is, so Chrissy could also be very nonchalant sometimes, like nothing's happening. And one day she's like sitting down and I'm like, Chrissy, is someone in your house? Because I kept seeing the thing that looked like a shadow pass like back and forth by a window. And I'm starting to freak out. And Tina could tell you I have the worst reactions because I like freak out in situations like that. And I was like, Chrissy, is someone in your house? And she doesn't even like look around. She just goes, no. I was like, are you sure? I see a shadow. And then even Tina's like, yeah, it looks like there's a shadow. And she's like, no, there's no shadow. And so very nonchalantly, she's like, yeah, it's nothing. And then you hear this slam and she's still like, it's nothing. Like, and I'm like freaking out, like, Chrissy, like, and to me, that was funny. Her just like, whatever. Like, I don't care.
don't take life. I don't take life. Yeah, I live alone and
All right. What about you, Tina? What do you deal with any of those things?
Pass.
Okay, well, that's fair.
No, I all of them. Everything, and I don't know if that's bad, but all of them. All.
yeah, basically, yeah, all the things that she's listed is what I've actually been like I've experienced in my short life so far.
And I feel like I have not been nearly as, not that this is like sort of competition, but nearly as much as now that I found out about things you went through, Pamela. And I know Sunny's history and Chrissy's history to a degree. And like, I know Sunny always says to me, well, your shit doesn't negate, or my shit doesn't negate your shit.
I say your pain doesn't negate my pain doesn't negate your pain.
Which
Like,
is
it's,
true, but like I look at you three, and it almost feels like, and I know it's not the case, but it's almost like the stuff I've been through doesn't even, like, why am I like this? I haven't even experienced the traumas that you three have been through. And
until I was about 30, I'm going to be 41, but 39 years old, I defended my uncle, the one that was in prison. I defended him. I somehow was able to separate myself and just condition my mind the way the adults in my life attempted to condition my mind that he's innocent. Even though he had everything, he admitted it. But his family, my mom, my grandmother, they always talked really badly about the particular cousin of mine that suffered the most. Let's just say that she was a dirty girl. And because that was what they said about her, I thought I must be a dirty girl. And so I kept it pretty quiet for a very long time. And it wasn't until I was pushed by my mom really severely one day when I was under a lot of stress that I ended up shouting it to her. And I used to apologize, or I would tell my friends, I have a couple of friends that have dealt with molestation by their family members. And I would tell them, I'm sorry, I can't relate, or you've been through so much more than me. But I have blocked out so much. And even though you might not be forgetting like major traumas, I'm not saying that you have any that you're not remembering, but we tend to downplay things that really affected us. And sometimes for me, I had to every day forget about the day before and just go forward to survive. And like Sunshine said, our pain doesn't negate your pain. Like we can't do that. Otherwise we won't heal from what we've been through. And I guess that's all I had to say about that. I don't know if I've made sense. Sometimes I go off and I don't make
No,
sense.
no. Total, what you said about defending your uncle, yeah, that actually resonates with things that I've done too, like defending people in my life that I know have been awful. So yeah, no, it makes total sense.
I defended my mom for years, and had you, like, I can get mad at her, I could yell things at her, like her and I could really get into it. But if you had said a bad word about her in front of me, I would have knocked you out. Like, and knowing what had taken place, knowing that even now there's a lot of people in my life that don't know the dark truths about my mom. And I think in some ways, I think it was part of me trying to hang on to some kind of innocence of childhood, or trying to cover up what had been done in childhood, to quote unquote have like a happy family. Like, no, good things were happening, like Brent's death was a tragedy, like all this stuff. And then, you know, later on, when I finally made sense of myself, especially when I became a mom, when I became a mama, like I looked at my child and I was like, I wouldn't let anyone hurt him. Someone hurt him, even accidentally, I have become enraged. Like, you know, because, you know, I heard this quote and it said, overprotective mothers were once underprotected daughters. And when you think about that, and you think of the reality of what that means, like when the very people in your life are supposed to protect you and they were like, no, like, you're not worth it. Like, and you think about that. And my son, I will never allow him to feel like he's not worth it, because he's worth every single one of my heartbeats. He is worth it. And I'll never do to him what was done to me. Not one time.
That's something I can relate to as well. And we get sometimes made fun of, like we get called helicopter moms.
Right.
And people don't take a second to think, well, why are they being a helicopter mom in the first place? My biggest concern was that my kids would be, even though I didn't admit it out loud and I defended my uncle, that was my ongoing nightmares, checking out everybody that they hung out with. My poor kids, they didn't have the freedoms, but at least I think I may find out later that I wasn't successful, because my mom, she did think she had a hold on me in that same way. She just didn't suspect her brother being a pedophile, and that he would have access to me, because my grandmother was my main babysitter. So she wasn't thinking I would be alone, but we did it out of love.
Right. Well, with that, you guys, we are just about out of time. And we have recorded for nearly 80 minutes, which is like amazing. We literally have less than about 2.5 minutes. Anybody have any last things to say?
Pamela, I would leave it to you.
Oh, the biggest thing I've come across in my healing journey is something called attachment theory in psychology. And that is where whoever our primary caregiver is supposed to be, they're not only supposed to protect us physically, but there's certain things emotionally that they need to support us on, and also pull away to give us independence. There's a balance to it. And when we don't have that, we can go to two extremes. We can become very avoidant and dismissive in our relationship with others, or we can become codependent or anxious with others. And I know I'm the codependent, anxious type. I'm too clingy, and my mood depends on the mood of my husband or my friend. I've been very aware of it, so I've been able to keep it at bay, but it just shows up in my everyday life. I just see that how important our childhood was to us, and how we deal with things now. So sometimes just taking a moment to think about how our caregivers were with us emotionally will explain a lot of why we do what we do today.
Well,
Awesome.
Pamela, we just really want to thank you for coming on. Honestly,
Oh,
it's been
you gotta come back.
Yeah, you gotta come back sometime, maybe in a few weeks, but we are so thankful that you came on, probably one of our most impactful shows. And thank you so much for pulling up a box and joining us today. But with that, we are going to end it. And so we're gonna do our thing. Pamela, you're welcome to join. So what we do is we go like this, and then we say, box people out. So let's do it. Okay, guys, box people. Oh wait, I get it wrong. Okay, go box people out.
We don't do all that. We literally do that.
I know. I screwed it up. All right.
We never did
And
that.
with that, we're out. Take your box and go, guys.
Bye, Pamela. Thank you.
Bye, Pamela.
Is that
Mwah.